Hi, and welcome to another episode of Midday Marketing. Guys, we're probably going to be about 15 minutes late. So it's now going to be 15 minutes past midday for marketing with Lynn, but that's okay. AFL has is important, so I'm not going to be upset about it. But today I'm actually joined by Matthew Williamson. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Williamson, indeed.
Okay. Matthew is I met Matthew through one of my current contracts, and he comes in and does a lot of video work for us. And so I've asked Matthew to come on and talk to us about doing videos for your website, doing videos for your social media, and some of the things that you need to know. Look, obviously, thanks to Instagram and TikTok, there's a lot of ways people can now do videos, but I just kind of wanted to get an expert in to talk about like some of the things you need to do, especially when you're doing it for your website, but some of the hints and tips for those people that are at home or small businesses that want to improve how their videos are done, whether it's on their Facebook page, their website, or for those where their audience is actually on TikTok. So Matthew, welcome to the show. Do you mind just giving my listeners just a blurb on what you do?
Yeah, so my company is pretty diverse in the way of video. We do a lot of live sport, so we look after a lot of sporting teams here. We do ice hockey, drag racing, jet boat, speedway, model RC cars. Man, you name it, we've probably done it. And primarily we do live to air video production, mostly to Facebook Live, but we also do pre-production, post-production for those as well. And for some of our other clients, we do direct to Facebook marketing or Instagram and stuff like that, and we produce videos for their requirements.
Yeah. Okay. So look, obviously now video marketing has become massive. Why do you think that's so?
Well, look, it's sort of society's changed. It's driven mostly from technology and the fact that we all have a video screen in our pockets now. We've all got one of these things, and society's kind of moved to this point where it's like instant gratification. So it's too difficult to read something anymore. I don't know if people
Don't
have.
be saying that. No.
I don't know if people have noticed, but like the quality of journalism has sort of declined seriously as well. It's
Yeah.
probably in line with the fact that people don't really read that much. So it's video. You can watch it. You can, rather than trying to tell someone what something looks like or feels like or does for you, you show them. You show them instantly that it's your product is cool and vibrant, and today that's sort of what it's all about. So in the way of marketing, I mean, we market services as well as products with some of our clients, and it's all the same thing. People absorb information visually much better than they absorb it through words, and that is extended in video. Why show them one picture when you can show them 25 a second?
Yeah. Okay. So look, there's a lot to video marketing though, and that's really what I want to get to. So let's just start with like a small business person like who doesn't have a large marketing budget but wants to shoot video for their product or service, right? So just like you pointed out, they've got one of these little babies, and that's pretty well all they've got, right?
Yep.
Because we all can't go and spend $15,000 on a great, awesome video camera, and we will get to editing and sound and all that sort of stuff as this podcast goes along.
Sure.
What's some of the stuff that they, should be having for this sort of?
It's in its absolute most basic form and its rawest form. If you've got a phone, then you can do some video marketing. The most basic things that you should look at when you're doing that is, if you're a one-man band and you can't even find someone to do that for you, cool, no problem. You can shoot it selfie style. That's fine. But be mindful. Like, you need to sort of take yourself, but before you go and do a live stream or something like that, record it for yourself and sit back and watch it. That's probably the most important thing. If it's going to go, I mean, I think we're probably going to talk about some formats and stuff later on, but be mindful about lighting and stuff like that. Just record it, watch it back, and critique it, and be really raw about it, rather than going, oh yeah, hey, look, that's me, and I'm going to show people my thing. Forget that for a moment and just go, technically, first point, technically, what's wrong with this picture? Is it too dark? Is it too bright? Can you see what I'm trying to show you, if it's a product or a service or something? And just get that part right. And then later on, you can critique your manner, like how you're presenting yourself. Are you dressed appropriately? You know, have you've taken care and brushed your hair and your teeth and stuff like that, you know? And then you can look at, can I string a sentence together? Can I improve that? You know, write a script, sit there, think about it, rehearse it, and then do it, rather than just, okay, we'll push the button and here's my thing, I think, you know. So just basic stuff.
I mean, I think when you're talking about script as well, I'd probably interject with that as well, as even like have an understanding of the questions that you're wanting to answer or address, or the points that you're trying to get across to your potential client, customer, whoever that, you know, that could be, so that the relevant information is getting across.
Well,
I mean, and
that's like the first 10 steps of selling, you know.
And I'm sure we've all seen those videos of those self-help gurus of just, you know, here I am, you know, with their AirPods in, and, you know, just like, I'm down at the beach and look at me. And like people will do that. Like, it's just, you do actually need to think. And even those are rehearsed and they're scripted, and they do think about what they're actually saying even though they looked impromptu and unrehearsed. Like, they actually are.
They've done them 10 times at least.
Yeah.
Guarantee.
So let's just talk about the different types of videos that are available for, because obviously, look, let's just break it down. So let's just talk about the main platforms. So obviously websites, one. And then like your social medias. So whether it's your Facebook or Instagram, and I wouldn't mind touching on TikTok a little bit, but yeah, I'm not really not happy if we don't, because there's so many things in TikTok to make those videos work. So that's almost like a different conversation altogether. So what do you suggest for types of videos for a website then?
So, I mean, website delivery is actually kind of difficult, because right at the moment, you know, I'm on a desktop computer or, you know, a laptop or something like that. This is actually not necessarily the majority anymore. The majority is shifted now. You need to understand that majority is now phones. It's phone based. Phone is a portrait device. It's not, you know, people don't look at websites like this. They look at it like this. You can actually find that out as well. I'm sure you probably touched on that when you did websites in the past. You can get that information. So the format, the size of it needs to be appropriate. If it's going to be a phone, cool, no worries. Make it portrait, because it shows up. It's a larger interface for your users to look at. You can show them more stuff at the same time, like showing them a price or whatever at the bottom of the screen while you've got video content at the top of the screen. It can all be built in the one video file. But people still watch on desktops. So, you know, it becomes complicated, where your browser needs to be able to detect what device they're on. Okay, they're on a phone. We're going to deliver the version of that content which is portrait. No, they're on a desktop. We're going to deliver the version of the content which is 16:9. It's on Instagram. Well, that means it's, you know, square in shape. It's on YouTube. Okay, it's 16:9 regardless of what device they're using. It's 16:9. So, like, if you're not aware, it means basically landscape like this, 16 parts long, 9 parts tall. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways you need to think about a piece of content, and shooting that content becomes complicated, because if you want to use the same raw material to produce a video for Instagram, Facebook, website delivery, potentially, maybe even television delivery or whatever. It needs to be shot in a way that you're going to be able to produce those different frame sizes without reshooting the same thing 4 or 5 times. So that's probably like a fairly, or like a seriously advanced thing to consider, is shooting with a 4K camera with a really wide lens, so you can then have an editor figure that out for you. But it's I think it's primarily the point that you need to understand that figure out where you want to deliver your content to, depending on what your target audience is. And target audience is, if you're after young people, well, then you're going to be looking at TikTok. You're going to be looking at Instagram, Facebook to a certain extent. Facebook, young people are starting to sort of wean off on the really young end of things. And YouTube, if it's an older demographic, well, then it's going to be YouTube, Facebook, and other traditional forms of advertising, like television and stuff like that. So
all right, so let's just break it down, right? So I've got one of these little babies. It's a pretty decent camera. It's a pretty, so I'm in one of my clients. We want to shoot a little video on, let's do a little plug here for Royal Flying Doctor Service, right? So I want to do a plug for this cup. I did do the tour in Kalgoorlie, by the way. It was very good if you ever get a chance. And so I'm there. I've got my camera set up. I've got my cup. Okay, yes, I've adjusted my lighting and all that sort of stuff, so I know that that's okay. I'm taking a little video of it. Right, so I've got the footage of my cup. Right. Sorry, now Google started to ask me where I wanted to go. Now, what do I do next? All right. So I don't yes, I know. So
you shot your video.
I've shot my little video. I've got no graphics on there. I've got no audio on there. What do I do next?
So graphics is like really important. If you look at anything, like go and browse yourself and look at content, spin through Facebook or Instagram and look for adverts. The adverts that look super pro versus the adverts that look, sort of backyardish. The difference is often audio quality and graphics. Graphics are super important, and like animated graphics are, just putting a link or a price or something overlay on top of your thing is 101. It's basic, but animated graphics are really super important to get done properly. So if you want to do that on on a budget, because you shot this on your phone and you're trying to make it happen for zero, there are apps available that can do graphic overlays. There are apps available that you can do your voiceover on. So if you have no budget, no equipment, and you've just got your phone, there are apps to use to record your voiceovers, and they just produce a basic sound file that you can then overlay on top of your video. There are try and stay away from shooting it with Instagram and using the basic Instagram filters and stuff like that, because that's an absolute dead giveaway. So don't, basic filters that you think look cool or whatever, just don't. It's not cool. It's not cool. Don't do that.
But I mean, Facebook's now got that creator studio in there. I mean, I technically only really use it to schedule posts at the moment still, but there are a lot of inbuilt stuff within an app like Facebook to help with some of these things, but you still reckon take it out, do it externally, and then feed it back in?
Yeah, really. You won't find any sort of really pro-looking content that you look at when you're spinning around and go, wow, I really like that. That won't come out of it. Just won't come out of one of those off-the-shelf kind of things like that, where you add a filter and an effect, and boom, there it goes. There are apps that are sort of designed to do it. They're not part of Facebook. They're not part of Instagram. They're not part of any of those things. Take it away and go and do it in one of those. It was like when YouTube brought in YouTube audio, and you had to get rid of whatever sound it was on your thing and put one of their tracks on it because it was cooler than the natural sound of someone wrestling around or something.
Yeah.
Cool, but it was a dead giveaway. Every single time you saw one of those ads and it had the same tracks and all the rest of it, I just didn't even bother. I'm like, nah, audio is so important. I think what people may or may not realize is that people will watch bad video. They won't watch, or that they won't watch something if the audio's trash, or they won't watch it if it's the same. You get earwigs in your brain, like, songs and stuff stuck in your brain. You don't get visual pictures like that stuck in your brain. That just, it doesn't do that. That's not how it works. Audio is super, super, super important. And that sort of like, leads you on to, microphone quality and stuff as well. But for the most basic, aspect of it, shoot your video with your phone first, and then use an app to record your audio, and hold your phone away from your face like this or something like that, and record your audio. Do it in if you've got no budget and you want to do it for nothing, do it in your closet. It's all your clothes and stuff in there absorb the sound, so do it in your closet. It'll kill the echo and make it sound better. And an absolute pinch, I have recorded many voiceovers in my closet before when I've had no equipment with my phone, and it does work. And find an app. There are many apps available that'll do basic animated graphics, even if it's just your price and link sliding in and sliding back out. You can get some stuff done really, really simply yourself for potentially $0 or a couple of dollars to buy an app.
Okay, look, I know we're now sort of moving on to like the hints and tips of doing video. So you've touched on audio. Now let's have a chat about lighting. Like, what are your suggestions? Because obviously, you don't want shadows. You want the product, like, again, using my Flying Doctor's mug, like like me having the product. Sorry, that was a dumb idea, but it being sort of over here, further away from the light, you don't see it obviously as. Sorry for those that are not watching the podcast and listening to the podcast. You have no idea where I'm putting my cup right now. But you can obviously see it better, with it. But then there's obviously reflections and things like that. What is some of, again, and I am using the example of somebody who is, small business. They just want to do it. Their budget is tight, and they can't afford reflectors and things like that. What are some of your hints and tips on trying to avoid some of those things with lighting?
Depending what your budget is, if your budget's like $0, then
let's work with $0 and go up.
Let's work with $0. There's not like reflective objects like the thing, the cup that you're showing us at the moment are really hard because you don't have a room dedicated to it. You're going to see reflections of everything. Potentially, you're even going to see a reflection of yourself or the camera in the photo. And there's really not much you can do about that. It's very, very difficult. I'd probably say if you want to do reflective objects like that, you're going to have to spend something, anything, the smallest amount of money. For non-reflective objects, there are some options, like even if you've got another family member with another phone and you're going to just shoot these pictures on your phone or whatever, you can use a couple of phones with phone lights and put a bit of blue tack or whatever and set them up so you've got light coming from at least 2 angles. If you light the device from or light whatever you're shooting from 2 angles, you'll kill most of the shadows. It's from in front, obviously. You don't care about the light behind. And that's the most basics of it. If you've got a few bucks,
at Kmart and Bunnings and stuff, there are some like little lights and stuff that you can get. Those little Arlic lights, which aren't overly expensive. Right now I'm using an IKEA light. Like there's things that are around that aren't going to break a budget.
Yeah, look, if you've got a few bucks to spend and some time, because time and money are two commodities that you may or may not have. If you've got a few bucks and some time, you can get yourself on eBay and get a little light tent. So if you're taking pictures of smaller items, you can get a little tent. They're like under $20, and it's all white, and it's it's like a lycra material or something like that. And you can just point some light in the sides and in the top, and all of a sudden you get this beautiful smooth light that makes even the reflective objects look good. And for $20 it won't come with lights, but that's cool. Then you go down to Bunnings and get yourself a couple of LEDs, and you've got a great, maybe it might cost $50 all up, and you'll have something that'll shoot really nice basic product photos. Depending how big your object is, will determine the price. If you've got a few more dollars to spend, you can get a light tent with built-in LEDs. Then you can get light tents up to, like a meter by a meter to fit, like a meter cube or something like that to fit even larger objects in. The costs run away to the point where you need to shoot a whole car, and then that's unachievable for anyone with less than $20,000. So you just go somewhere.
That's a great point. Like, where do you think that price point lies? So, obviously, the small business, when you kind of shoot something quick or inexpensive for Facebook updates and things like that, and then there's sort of big production videos.
Yeah, I think you can do stuff cheap, as long as like your lighting tent or something, like you can purchase a lighting tent, then you can still do it cheap. And lighting tents come up to the point where they'll fit a whole person in them. So if that's what you want to shoot, an object of that size, or it's people, then no worries, you can do it for $500 or less. If you need to go bigger than that, then it's like you need to start converting space. So you need to convert a room. You need a permanent spot for this, where you can put up a gyprock wall, and you can light it properly with some lights. Paint the floor, the walls, the ceiling, everything has to be white. And if you're a do-it-yourself, you can do that probably still for $500. And then the larger you go, then the problem is even lighting costs run away. So, paint costs money, rooms cost money, it's space as well for your business. So if you've got, some spare space in the corner where you just need a corner, you don't need a full room, you can do it in a corner. No worries, you might be able to fit that in your storeroom or something, and, you just paint her up. Job's done. If you want to make it look like an endless background, then you just have to, on the floor, you've got to round the corners on the floor so that you can't see where the background finishes. And then you can do some really, really cool stuff. So there are a lot of options. I mean, you just have to use your brain a little bit to figure out where you can fit a background like this. And if you're not a do-it-yourselfer, then that's cool. Just find someone to do it for you. Go and look for, basic handyman on Gumtree or something. And there are people who can do it.
All right, so we've discussed lighting, we've discussed sound. What about any hints and tips in regard to camera angle and position? So again, we've got like a simple product that we're just trying to promote and have an image of. What do you suggest, like, in terms of camera angle?
I think if you're on a super budget and you're doing it with your phone or whatever, the important thing to remember, and this is kind of on any budget, the important thing to remember is people are used to looking at objects from their eyes, from head height. So if that's, if you're shooting a larger object like a car or something like that, okay, you can get stylistic with it or whatever. But if you're shooting, people, if it's fashion or something that you're selling, people are used to looking at stuff from eye level. So don't shoot it down on the floor, or don't shoot it from chest height. A lot of people are, you see them taking pictures like this. Well, they always look naff because you're shooting from, your chest height. That's not where people's eyes are. Shoot it from eye height. Especially with people. We have an expectation as humans about how we see people, unless it's like I was saying, a stylistic shot or something. If it's a normal shot to sell clothes, you shoot it from eye level. That's probably the primary thing I would say. If it's if it's tiles or bathroom goods or whatever it might be, you don't have the same restriction. Obviously, you want to frame the picture appropriately, so we don't want to see the rest of the showroom. If you're trying to show us a toilet or something, we don't want to see the rest of the showroom. We want to see the toilet framed appropriately, as large as it possibly can be in that frame to show us as much detail as possible. Don't shoot it straight on so that we can't see what the rest of the lines are like. Shoot it on a 45 so that we get to see the side profile and the front at the same time.
Yeah. And ultimately, I guess you can take it like 45, 45, and so and put them together. So then at least it's giving a full view, or even go from one 45 degree and then move around to the other 45 degrees. So you get everything.
Better than that. And this is like movement in shots is so important. If you go and look at some great advertising for products or even services or whatever it might be, a good place to look at what should your shots look like. Look on TV, because TV's generally got a higher budget than most online advertisers. Although there's a shift at the moment, TV still has a higher budget. So go and watch TV, watch the adverts. Forget the programming, watch the adverts, and you'll see that shots are generally not static. They either pan or they tilt, or the shot is dollying. A dolly shot is where it actually moves around the subject. So if I was going to shoot an advert for a toilet, then I would use a dolly shot. I would start on 145 and I would move the camera around the item to the other 45, and then I would change shots. It would never be, here's a shot and now here's another shot from another angle. We wouldn't do that. Moving shots is sort of the cornerstone of 2000 and onwards. They go and watch TV from 1999 and they've got a lot of panning shots. Dolly shots is really sort of where we're at these days. But therein lies a massive amount of complexity. For you to level up and be able to do that, it's going to be really hard with one of these, because trying to get a smooth dolly shot while you're holding this thing, crab walking around the item is way difficult, even for someone like me who's really experienced.
So and even one of those little handheld little doobie whackers it's still not very steady.
The doobie whacker?
The doobie whacker,
These are really cool. This will help you out an awful lot, but straight away you're taking your budget from, I've got my phone in my pocket, to $550. So let's say you've got $500. What is that
doobie whacker called?
So this particular device is called an Osmo Pocket. It's a gimbal stabilized camera. So I'll just turn the thing on. The camera, which is at the top here on the head, if I move this thing around, the camera stays still. It's nice and it's balanced. It's actually electronic, and it stabilizes the camera to horizon. So you can move this fella around, and it smooths out all the bumps of you moving. They're fantastic. They work really, really well. And if you've got $550, buy one of these, because if you're going to be doing any kind of dolly shots or moving around or walking through your showroom, or you might be selling cars at a dealership and you want to show the product as much as possible, you can walk around the product. It's not always, with smaller products, you can build a lazy Susan and spin the product with a static camera so that we can see it from all angles. With a larger object like a vehicle, there is actually an auction house that has a spinner, but you'd be talking about $10,000-$20,000 or something like that. So buy one of these fellas, you can walk around the car, you can open the door, you can put it inside, you can look around, for real estate or whatever. You can just grab this thing and walk around and tour people. So they're really good. It takes it from bargain basement, phone in my pocket, to $550, but you'll get your money's worth out of it. That's for certain.
Okay. Now, one of the other things I'd like to talk to you about is the repurposing of the video. So, like, obviously, if regardless of whether or not somebody shot it on their phone, whether it's an interview or a product or a whatever, like they've shot it on their phone and they want to use it for their website, they want to use it for whatever social media platforms they're using, or if they have gone to, to the expense of hiring, a professional like yourself to come in and do it. What's some of the hints and tips that you'd recommend in regards to helping repurpose easily, efficiently, and not losing quality in that?
If you shot a video and it's let me just roll that back. If you're going to shoot a video and you want it to be universal, so you can put it anywhere, as I sort of said earlier, you need to shoot it super wide. So you need you can't it'll have to be shot in 16:9, so widescreen portrait, when you're shooting, basically hold your phone sideways, and quite wide, with the intention that it can go on a website, it's widescreen, it can go on YouTube, it can go on telly, it can go anywhere you want it. But then when you do want to move it over to another platform, you can crop the sides off and turn it into a square image. Okay. That's like 101. If you're gonna try and shoot one video for everywhere, then it's got to be done like that. But there's more to consider than sort of the technical aspect of how do I shoot my video so it can go anywhere. It's also about the content duration, like how quickly you can deliver your message, because on these different platforms, you've got, if you're shooting a explainer video for your product, which is going to go on YouTube, you've got, 2 minutes. If you're going to put a video on Facebook, you've probably got 30 seconds. Yeah. If you're gonna put one on Instagram, you've got like 5 seconds, or TikTok or something like that, you've got 5 seconds. Yeah. It is literally, and I mean, Snapchat ads and all the rest of that sort of stuff, they are 5 seconds. Yeah. Having said that, in all of those formats, you need to deliver the punch of your argument within 3 seconds of the start of your video. Yeah. So you've only got, when you're scrolling past, you've got to the point in time where they scroll up the screen, and one scroll reveals your video. You've got to the time they move their finger back to the bottom and start to scroll up again, which is like 3 seconds. So in any format, regardless of the technical aspect, you need to do something that grabs their attention and says, hang on, just wait a moment. You need a few more seconds to see what I'm doing here before you scroll on. So whatever that is, it's too generic to be able to sort of give you examples of how you get people's attention.
So let's break it down then. So I've taken a video again on my phone for a product. For this product again, and I want to use that video or a bit of that footage on like Facebook and Insta. Let's use that as an example, right? And like the retail environment that I work in, like you kind of want to get a product image or something that we're selling that's on offer. You kind of want it up quickly. You don't want to having to go to a production company every single time. You just want a nice photo, nice, like this is this particular tile that we're selling. You want to get it on Facebook. You want to get it on Instagram that day. What's your recommendation?
I think if it's where are we talking in the way of budget? So like, have you bought a device or are you using your phone here?
Using your phone.
Okay, so using your phone, you're going to put so you've got like a particular tile you want to put online or something like that. It's like, I think if you're going to do it off your phone, you can't do dolly shots or anything like that. It's just going to look naff. Yeah. So I think you should shoot it from 2 or 3 different angles. Yeah. And in your video, the tiles aren't particularly exciting, so there's not much really to look at.
Yeah, or even
but I mean, like any static object like that, if you've got no tripod, no anything, shoot it from 2 or 3 different angles. It may not even be video; it might actually just be photos.
Yeah.
You put it into, so there are real basic video editors for your phone. You get an app.
Yeah.
Even iPhones come. I don't know about Android. I know nothing about Android, but iPhone comes with a
Oh,
basic editor.
I'll make no
Yes, no
comment
Android
as an
here.
Android person here. But anyway, yes.
Use the editor that comes with the phone. You can
Yeah.
whack in your 3 images. You can do a basic on-screen graphic with what type, what style it is, or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
and all
The
that.
name of the business, blah blah blah. Yeah.
Slide it in. Well, your business should be the whole time. So you should have your business logo or something in the corner. We call it a bug. Put it at the top right or whatever. You should have that in the corner the whole time, because whenever they look at it, it shouldn't appear or fade in or something, because they might miss it. If they're only going to look at it for 2 seconds or 3 seconds, they might miss.
Yeah.
So
And that
leave it there.
distract. So yeah.
Yeah, leave it there in the corner. Show your tile, fade to another angle, and during all of that, you slide in the description or whatever it is, and a price and that sort of stuff. And then there you go, job's done. Now, some of these, if it's on Instagram, it's videos loop. So if you do slide something in on screen or make something appear, you need to make it disappear or slide out, so that when the video loops, it looks like it's smooth and consistent.
Yeah.
I'd hate things like, oh, it's a nice fade in, all of a sudden it just disappears, and then the video loops and go. I hate it. Make it look good, and voice it over. If you don't have anybody who can do it for you, do it yourself. Write your script and record it, listen back to it, make sure that it makes sense. You check your grammar or whatever.
Spelling.
Spelling doesn't matter.
No, spelling.
Well, if you've got a description, yeah, from the video aspect, obviously spelling doesn't matter. But if you're going to type a description, spelling, make sure it's right. That's, yes, ridiculous. No one should be posting anything with bad spelling. In fact, it's happened to me a couple of times. It's happened to me a couple of times where I've somehow magically the phone's replaced a word with something else, and I haven't seen it. And my father-in-law sends me a message quick as a flash. So triple check it, because they do creep through. But your grammar, just to make sure, if you're one of these people who have trouble with, and I'm not being rude or anything, but some people do have trouble with grammar and sentences making sense, send it to one of your mates. You've probably got Facebook Messenger or whatever. Send it to someone. Use their brains. Use the brains trust. I do that. I've got a group of people that when I'm writing scripts for stuff, I send it to them, and they do the same to me, and I say, pick the guts out of it.
I wrote some scripts for you and said, mate, pick it to shreds. Like, we all do it. The other one is to read it out loud.
Yeah.
I found when I read something out loud, you go, oh, hang on a sec, it needs a comma in there, or it needs, that actually helps a lot.
I do. Now, I'm not sure if this is universal, but personally, when I'm reading things, I read it at a pace that I think is appropriate. And I've done a lot of TVCs or television commercials and stuff, a lot of 30-second ads. So I know pretty well how fast to read something. But I still read too quickly. Even if I manage trying to squeeze this whole script in 30 seconds, I still read too quickly, and it's you can't understand it. So record it, listen back to it, send it to a friend, let them listen to it, because you might know exactly what your product is, and it makes total sense. But when you send it to somebody else, they're like, what are you talking about? I don't even like, what are those words? I don't understand what you mean. If I wanted to go, so I've listened to your ad, I've absorbed it, but I don't know what that is. So when I try to go to Google and search your thingamabob, I just can't find it. So send it to someone, use the brains trust.
Okay. Look, I know we've spoken a lot about shooting videos with your phone, but before we finish the interview,
I've got one big one.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you off. One big one. you've probably now people who are watching this and not listening to this,
Yeah.
they may or may not have noticed that like I'm making an extreme effort to keep eye contact with the lens of the camera.
Yeah.
I'm not so I actually have like a $15,000 camera I'm using today because I don't have a webcam. So
Okay.
it's off to the left hand side of my monitor. If I
Yeah.
was actually look at Lynn, I'd be looking over here. That
Well,
looks stupid.
yes.
Don't do it. Look at the lens. I can see Lynn in my peripheral vision when she's look at this wonderful can of drink. You know, I can see her do that in my peripheral vision. I don't
Yeah.
look at it unless she asked me to look at something in particular. Then I sort of glance over. Look right at the lens, and even on your phone, you know, the lens on an iPhone's right at the top. Look at the
Yeah.
top of the phone. Don't look in the middle because we can see you're not making eye contact, and it makes a difference.
Oh, well, now you're freaking me out because I know that my entire eye line, I've been looking slightly down because you're right there, but my camera is there. So I probably haven't actually made eye contact with anybody who's actually watching the show because I've been looking at that the whole
You see,
time.
now, I'm probably over the top. Most people probably won't notice, but because I'm a production guy, you
Yeah.
know, I look at these things. So, but I really do think it makes a difference when you're serving a customer. You wouldn't go and stare at their chin. You look at them in the eyes. So
Well,
I
as a
think
female, I do
make
have a
it.
lot of people looking slightly lower, but that's a whole nother conversation completely. And we won't go there. Yes. No, but that's a really good point. I'm now gonna, yeah. I now feel like I need to do that more. I have to go back and watch some of my YouTube videos for this and see what, because I probably am looking down and people,
Yeah. It's something to think about. For me, it's a little easier because I've got such a large lens. It's easy for me to stare down the barrel. But on a phone or something, when you're doing it, you know, for your own product, you're walking around taking your selfie. Don't look at yourself on the screen.
yeah.
Look at the lens.
Okay, so that's also that's now going to bug me for the rest of my interviews, and I will always remember that piece of advice. Thank you very much, Matthew. But okay, so we've spoken a lot about you've got your camera, right? You've got your phone. That's it. That's your camera, and then so I now want to take it to that next step, right? Where I want to. I'm still not doing TVC type commercials, but I want to kind of just do better videos for better interviews. What do you suggest? Like, because obviously some of those video cameras now, they get really big and like editing.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions?
So, depending what you're shooting, if you're running around doing videos of products where you're not on a tripod, I guess actually reel that back. If you can do your video on a tripod, get a tripod.
Okay.
And that's regardless if you're on a phone or whatever it is. If it's a subject matter where you're going to stand in front of the camera and do something, and you're not moving, get a tripod. You can get them for $25. If it's moving stuff and you're going to be running around, then seriously, like, think about getting a gimbal stabilized camera. That's this little fella. If you want to do that live to Facebook, and I really like Facebook Live. We do like a heck of a lot of Facebook Live. When I say a heck of a lot, I mean like sometimes 100 hours a week, kind of that much.
Holy crap, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we do a lot. So
even now when there's not that much sport going on.
So right now, because we're primarily sport, it's really been reeled back. But even this last week, we have done probably 20 hours, 25 hours.
Wow.
And that's so we do some stuff with sporting teams that they're like the ice hockey guys. They're not playing at the moment, but the national teams aren't. But we're still doing interviews and stuff and everything with them. So we're doing 3-hour show a week with them. And we actually did ice hockey in Perth this week. So there's a bunch there. But if you're going to do Facebook Live or Instagram Live or whatever it is, it's easiest to do it on your phone. So buy a phone gimbal. You can get a gimbal stabilizer for your phone. That's really good because if you're going to do that, you can interact with people live. You can still do live on one of these fellas.
Yeah.
And the video quality is better on these. The cameras are better, but obviously you can't interact with people live on a live stream. Whereas on your phone, all their comments and everything are coming up. Ask them for comments, and oh, what do you want to know about this car? What do you want to know about that? And you can interact with people. Interaction is also a key point. So video shouldn't necessarily be pre-production and then post it and done. Tick that box and sit back and put your feet up. You can also think about video as live stream, just like we're doing today, and interact with people live, because people love seeing their comments on screen and stuff like that, and you can run away and produce some really, really cool stuff.
Okay.
But if you're going more than that, so static, buy a tripod. Non-static, get a gimbal of some description. If you've got more budget than that, so that was like the $550 budget mark. If you've got more budget than that, or actually I should say phone gimbals are a little cheaper. You can get them for like $350, $400. If you want to spend more money than that, I'll lean out of my shot a little. These
sweet.
So this is a really nice little run and gun camera, and you can do really cool stuff with this. So it's not cheap. You can get cheaper versions. This particular one is like you need to lift it up. Sorry. This one is like $5,000.
Okay.
But the difference is this does super slow-mo. So you can do really cool stuff, like if it's a spinning set of wheels on a car or something like that, you can shoot those wheels or mill or machinery or whatever it is, dust extractor. You can shoot it in like 500 frames a second and then slow it right down. And that's really cool. People watch that. So when I was talking before about find the 3 seconds to make people stop and watch, super slow-mo is a really cool thing. And you can even use super slow-mo for selling dresses. Get your model to spin around and shoot it in 500 frames a second. You can do that on your phone. This, I don't know about Android. It's because it's backwater country, but on an iPhone, you can shoot 250 frames a second on an iPhone, and I think it's a really good tool to use because it's a little bit different. People in television, producing sport or anything like that, it's like take the viewer where they can't go. They're not interested in seeing from the sidelines something. Take them where they can't go. Take them inside a race car. Take them on board a jet sprint, whatever it is. Do something different they don't usually see. So shoot super slow-mo. Get your model to spin around. If it's a fireplace you're selling, put a big fire in there, or and set up a fireball and shoot it in 500 frames. They're cool things. So you can do it with a $5,000 camera.
I always describe it as show them how the sausage is made. Like that's people actually want to know how the sausage, regardless of what industry you're in, they do like to know.
Absolutely, they do.
Yeah. So the 500. Okay. So, all right, and then obviously, then there are professionals such as yourself that you can come to where if you are doing like explainer videos, big product. Like you spoke about the cars, showing like videos around them, that takes it to a whole different level of video, right? And then so you guys, so let's take the car for example. If I've asked you to come in and video my new Audi, what do you guys do for that sort of thing?
If we were going to shoot a promo for something like that, it wouldn't just be static shots somewhere. I'd be getting it out on the road and doing stuff with it. So we would be looking to produce a variety of shots in all different situations with different cameras and stuff. So if it was a 4-wheel drive or something, we'd be trying to get it on a beach somewhere and get a drone in the air and shoot from a drone. Then we'd get it on the freeway, like probably through the Grain Farmer Freeway tunnel. If you're not from Perth, that's like our only tunnel. And I'd have a chase car right next to it or just in front of it with one of these fellas on it. I'd put this on a suction mount, like on the back bumper of the car. upside down, real close to the road, and I'd have that, the car we're selling zoom past us, and you can remotely control that camera with your phone, so you can move the camera head and pan as the car goes past you and stuff like that. I'd be doing all sorts of different stuff. I'd get another one of them on a stick through the window, and as I retract the camera through the window, I'd have the person sitting in here who's adjusting the radio or something. Just as the camera goes out the window, put the window up so the window closes just as the lens goes through the window.
Yeah.
Just different stuff like that. It'd be a lot of shots. It'd take, half a day of shooting.
Yeah.
And then we would send that off to an editor, and they'd spend half a day mucking around with it. We'd find a cool audio track. Now, when I say audio tracks, I did talk about that before. You can't go, hey, I really like this song on the radio by blah, blah. No, forget it. You can't do it. TV, yes. You can't even do that on online. Like, even if you're Coca-Cola, they won't use mainstream tracks most of the time online because it is too hard. So you've got to go to, an audio website that sells production music and buy a track from them. And that, when I say buy a track for use, it might cost you $9. It might cost you $25. I don't think I've ever paid more than about $30 for a track. And buy some music. There's like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of copyright free or royalty free, I should say, royalty free music that you can buy to put in your video of all kinds of moods. So go and sit there and find the right audio and whack it all together, and then you get some cool voiceover guy that goes, "Oh, the new Audi, blah blah blah, only from $29.9." Now there are guys that do that. I use a guy who does those low voice, golden microphone guy, I kind of call them. I use a guy that does that, who's on the other side of the country, and he charges like $100. And he's a well-known voice who does ads for, all kinds of brands that you hear on the radio and all the rest of it. They're not expensive. Go and get it voiced by a good guy. If you've got, if your total budget is $1,000 to do a thing, get it voiced by a good guy. And stipulate that to your production company when you're, if you're going to engage someone to make $1,000 ad or a $2,000 ad, make sure you tell them what kind of voice you want. I want a female voice, want a male voice, I want a deep voice, I want a young person, whatever it is. Figure out who your target audience is, because if your target audience is 60 plus, they listen to 60 plus people. If your target audience is 14-year-olds, well, you don't use a 14-year-old, but you use a young person. You use an 18-year-old because they look up to, that's the people they aspire to be. So you use someone who they look up to, use that voice.
Okay.
Probably got sidetracked.
It's all good. Like, this is why we do podcasts. But finally, before you leave, I just want to ask one more question, and that's about doing your live broadcasts. So, because I know Russell is about to do this massive Pride in July event, and it would be remiss of me not to ask a question about any hints and tips for when you are in whether it's a comedy or drag queen show or something along those lines that Russell's doing. Like, what are some hints and tips that Russell can take from this, other than looking down the camera?
If it's live stream, depending, like, that's a huge can of worms, basically. So live stream off a phone, live stream from a professional camera, multi-camera live stream. So that the stuff that's
do you want me to jump in and give you a run?
Okay. Man.
So we there was many ideas. We have gone to, just like you said in your thing, get a company to do it for you. Sometimes that's the best thing. So we have a 3-set multi-camera set. We, of course, have our stage, all that kind of stuff. We have where the host will be presenting from. Like, personally, the things I've learned doing COVID and live streaming is make sure you have a running sheet. Like
Yeah.
a running sheet is really, really important. Like, like I know that people might go, oh, talking to the camera and do all that kind of stuff, but yes, you can always fix audio, you can always fix video, but the one thing that you can't fix is the lower thirds. So if you're doing a live show and your lower thirds are out because you haven't got a running sheet, well then there's no way to fix that. There's literally no way to fix it.
It's like what I was saying before. For those that don't know what lower thirds are, it's the graphics that come up on the bottom third of the screen with, a Spiffy McNoodle, runs a Mr. Whippy van or whatever. It tells you who they are and where they're from. Graphics are super, super, super important. So if you're talking about, Russell's thing is 3-cam, multi-camera live stream. So you've got a vision switcher, 3 cameras, it's all connected together, and you've got graphics on screen. We take it one further with our sporting stuff, and we also have live replays as well. Yeah. So instantly you go from a one-man crew with a phone or something like that to 3 people on cameras and a director, and that director might also be doing the graphics at the same time and the replays or whatever. Run sheet, because you don't want to get. We've had a couple of embarrassing moments over our time where, and you see these things. You see these things online, and they're ha funnies. Where here's a guy, a presenter on screen, and he brings in a guest, and the guest comes on, and then they slide up the lower third, and it says Richie Doodle Duck instead of the guy's name. And that seriously happened to us, that exact thing, right? Because the guy who was on screen, his name was Richie. We knew that. When we built the graphic, when my graphics guy that I no longer use built the graphic a couple of days before, he didn't know his surname, so he put Doodle Duck in there. And then on the day, 3 times on the day, I said, his surname's Howlett, his surname's Howlett, his surname's Howlett. And then when it came to, we're on air, it's the opening shot, this beautiful, we've got a cable cam. It looks like a drone, but you're allowed to put it over the top of people. Beautiful cable cam shot, flying along, showing us drag racing, and a huge crowd, 10,000 people there. And we crossfade down to an RF camera, like a wireless camera, on the start line with 2 presenters there, and we slide the lower thirds up. And for a moment, we had a Hail Mary moment. It was like, wow, fantastic. We weren't sure we had the graphics on the right side, 2 presenters. And then I looked down at the name, and it said Richie Doodle Duck. And I'm like, I've never smashed the keyboard so hard. I'm like, no, smashing the keyboard, And the problem was, what got me is our graphics, when you tell it to go away on this particular graphics package, you push the button and you had to wait 3 seconds, and it was an eternity. So, running sheets.
It's one of those things that I've learned really, like we use Streamlabs OBS, so nothing fancy. It's a free software, and we've been looking, because what we want to do here at the studio when everyone comes back is continue the live streams. It's increased our business. Look, the AFL show that we have gets 20,000 viewers every single month on Facebook. Yep. So for us, we have to. Now, we've looked at different packages, like I think it's from not YouTube, it's the other company, Vimeo, that's the one. They have their live streaming software. It's $999 US.
Yeah, it used to be that used to be called I've forgotten it. Live stream producer. And sorry, I don't like it. I wouldn't rate it. I'm actually using vMix. Well, our production stuff's very, like, this is way off topic, but our production stuff is really I don't trust PCs, so I wouldn't just use a software package with cameras, streaming into it. We use hardware vision switches, so we use the Blackmagic products, the Blackmagic 8M. We've got the 2ME, which is 20 channels, so we can take in 20 inputs. That is a hardware device. It won't crash. I use hardware encoders, so the video comes in over fiber optic, goes into a switcher, we process it, add graphics and all the garbage, and then it goes into a hardware encoder that sends it to Facebook. So my entire workflow of the mission critical stuff is hardware based. The software-based stuff controls the vision switcher. It controls the graphics. It does all that sort of stuff. So if it goes offline, which it has in the past, okay, it's embarrassing, but we didn't lose a whole stream. It's still there. So that's sort of, we do use vMix. We actually have 3 vMixes in our trucks. One of them is graphics. One of them does replays, and the other one does play out for like adverts and all the rest of it. So we've got 3 full vision switches, just doing other stuff, and then a full hardware vision switcher. 4 vision switches in all of our trucks, just to make the whole thing work. But I highly recommend vMix. Anyone out there who wants to do cheapo live stream, vMix does a license for like $60, and it's good enough to do basic SD, which is fine for Facebook Live or whatever, and you can put titling on it, graphics and green screens and all that. I'm actually using a green screen today because I don't have a decent background, so that's without the background, of course. It just helps. It helps add some value to your production. You don't need a $15,000 camera to do it. You can do it on your crummy old webcam. But yeah, it just helps.
And also, like, I think the other tip I'd try to give as well, if you are using your PC and you're using a free software, like I use my mobile phone to switch scenes because it is more discreet using the touch screen than what it is of a clicking sound, because if I click a mouse, I'm sure that comes through the audio. So
yeah, you can probably hear me clicking at the moment, but there's a level up on. So that's a really good thing. vMix also produces a website for you to get your phone or your tablet to switch with. There's another device called a Stream Deck. If I try and hold this appropriately. So it's off at the moment, but each one of those buttons actually has a little screen behind it. So you can set these buttons up to do anything you want. And it doesn't just work with vMix, it works with everything. So you can make one button do a dozen tasks. Bring graphics up, play audio, adjust a level, switch cameras, whatever you want, roll a replay. And they're not expensive. If you're starting to do a lot of live stream, which COVID has created a lot of live stream business, get yourself, like I highly recommend Stream Deck because it has, you can stack automation tasks. So apply this to, what we've been talking about today with marketing stuff. If you're going to do live streams, like let's say you're an auction house, and I don't know why, but at the moment I haven't actually seen any auction house in Australia do live streams on Facebook of their auctions. They totally should.
I'm surprised.
They totally should, because
we do actually happen to know somebody that runs an auction house. So why have you not discussed it with them?
I have. They should take they take photos anyway. They should get their photos of the vehicles or whatever they're auctioning, and when it comes up to next thing, they push the button. It brings up a picture montage of the vehicle or a pre-production thing that you can bring up your on-screen graphics with the current pricing and all the rest of it. Put a picture with the auctioneer, with the car in the background, and all of these things can be automated just with cheapo bit of software and a Stream Deck for like $250.
I will say this though, like, look, I'm sure you're aware of this, and I know I am. The problem with maybe an auction house having something like a live stream going out as well with bidding going at the same time is there's always a delay in the broadcast. It sometimes can be about 30 seconds, and it can also be longer. Depends on the internet speed.
So we're doing things about that at the moment. So the internet as a whole, and Telstra and the evil, hang on, let me just change my voice, the evil 5G. It's gonna
make video fun for us.
Let me get started. We're doing things about that. So
during Corona, wasn't that was one conspiracy theory, right? Because we got 5G, so Corona.
Oh yeah, totally. 5G caused coronavirus.
Oh look,
you didn't hear it here.
Personally, I think 5G is great. Like we tried to get Telstra to do a live outside broadcast outside Optus Stadium here in Perth for the football show, and they were like, if it was any other stadium, we would say yes. So it was damn.
Yeah, Optus.
It was just that Optus thing.
So the whole delay thing is becoming less and less and less of a problem. There are ways around it. There's been ways around for a long time. You could always roll your own server if you wanted to push users to your own server that's being hosted in the cloud or wherever it is. You could get delay down as low as a handful of seconds, 3 seconds or something like that. But it's becoming even easier than that now. Streaming at the heart of it doesn't actually mean you have to have long delays. We can, so I can absorb cameras. If I send someone out to a sports stadium, I can get a feed from them with less than 300 milliseconds delay. So, and that's streamed through the internet. It just depends what method you do it. People are now making it easier. YouTube Live now has the ability to pick between a normal latency is delay, a normal latency, a mid latency, or a super low latency. A super low latency through YouTube is like a handful of seconds. Yeah. So this live interaction, because Facebook's not doing that at the moment, and it can be up to, I've seen Facebook delays up to a minute. As low as 17 seconds. And there are ways that you can actually affect that latency. It's not just luck of the draw. Depending what method, if you send the wrong frame size and bitrate to Facebook, so for the users or for the listeners that don't know exactly what I'm talking about, HD is considered like the beginning of HD is 720p. So if you're on Facebook right now, I'm not sure what Russell's sending this in, but
we are sending this at in kilobits per second, 4,244 kilobits per second. So at the beginning of HD, but they still say SD.
And what frame size?
60 frames per second.
Nah, frame size like 1280 by 720 or 1920 by 1080 full HD or
1080, I believe. I would have to check. You stumped me.
So we'll let's assume it's 1080, and I'll school you a bit. What you're doing by doing that is actually creating further delay than necessary, because Facebook does not accept that frame size or that bit rate. They're too high. Facebook will have to take your video and transcode it into something acceptable. So maximum bit rate you can send to Facebook without it turning on its nasty transcoders is 4,000 kilobits a second, which is just under 4 megabit, and 720p 50. Or 60, sorry. We'll take 60.
I've just opened up the settings here, where output scale is 1,280 by 720 with frames per second, 60 frames per second, and the streaming is 4,000 kilobits per second.
There you go. So you've said it right on the nose, so that's perfect. Now, if you're over that, a lot of people get trapped thinking, I'm going to send full HD. Don't do it, because you'll increase the delay, and that delay will be around 15 seconds added just because you tried to stream full HD. The only people who are allowed to stream full HD on Facebook are gamers, believe it or not. If you're going to stream games live, which is becoming very popular, you're allowed to do 1080.
I have a 13-year-old son. I have spent many hours watching him watch somebody else play a game.
Yeah. Super popular at the moment, watching people.
I can't believe that's a job now.
Absolutely. They've got thousands. Just to diverge for a moment, the one I understand the least is this dude that's, there are 5,500 people watching him.
PewDiePie. Is that the Iceland dude?
No, I don't know. I don't know what his name is, but he's driving a truck. It's a truck driving game, and he's sitting there driving he's got a steering wheel and whatever, driving a truck, doing deliveries.
I've seen it.
Not running over people, not GTA style or something. He's just driving a truck, doing deliveries, and he's got 5,500 people watching.
Really, we should be putting a camera in the certain delivery truck that we both know, and having
watch them really do deliveries. I reckon that
really do deliveries.
Now, okay, since this is a marketing show, here's a marketing idea, right? Now, it's not totally wacko. IKEA actually did it. IKEA put cameras in the ship that it was in one of the ships that was doing a delivery to, from Sweden or whatever.
Yeah.
And you literally got to watch the the bow of the ship for 5 minutes, and then you watched the engine room for 5 minutes, and then you watched the tail shaft just spinning for 5 minutes. It was garbage. You know how many people watch that garbage with IKEA on the corner of it?
Yeah, it was
amazing.
On the plane, right? You know how when you're flying, or when we used to be able to fly, and you could get the camera of outside the plane and the camera, like all the different
Yep.
And
man, if someone out there was what's the right word? If they were confident enough in their delivery driver that they were 100% perfect, it would be a great marketing thing to actually put, you don't want to put a GPS tracker on it like they did with the IKEA thing. It was actually show you where the ship was. But it would be a great thing to just put, show the dash cam of a guy driving around in circles with your logo in the corner making deliveries. And then when he's
we're going to do it. We've got the technology. We could do it.
You might want to make sure that you mute the driving
oh yeah,
sound.
totally. You've got to have production music. You've got to have production music, and what you'll have to do is you'll have to set it up so that as you're playing like some strings or something like that or whatever, you ring him up and like, hey man, do some headbanging for a while.
Okay, I just want to also just because this happened to us. We're doing live outside broadcasts, video broadcasts at pubs and at the moment with another show on our network called Open Bar. Now,
which I want to get a guest show on because I want to be drinking some wine on a podcast.
Absolutely. But this was a big thing that we found. So we attempted to do a video broadcast with, I'm going to name them and shame them, with Vodafone. Now, their 4G network is crap to do video. So we ended up we literally ended up purchasing Telstra just for our video broadcasting.
Yeah.
What?
So there's a lot of caveats with streaming, and this is sort of like when before you jumped on the mic and started chatting with us, I was about to say it's really difficult. So if you do it off your phone, it's actually quite reliable to do it off your phone. But you will notice that when people are on their phones doing things, the video can go to absolute trash, really bad. But it still goes. Now, when you get to the other end of the scale and you've got, an OB truck there with, $500,000 worth of equipment and all the rest of it, and you're trying to send it to Facebook through Vodafone or something, the problem is there's a lot of different methods. So typically, if you're going to shoot directly to Facebook, you're using a method called RTMP, Real-Time Media Protocol, and that requires two-way transmission. So you've got to send 4 megabits, which is 4,000 kilobits, like we were saying, and you need packets back from Facebook to say, hey, yep, I got that bit, send the next bit. Okay, yeah, got that bit, send the next bit. And it's just this bi-directional communication constantly. So if you go to a festival or something where you test the day before and sweet as you got 20 megabits up, everything's working beautiful, it's looking nice, and then you come back to the festival, you fire up in the morning, yep, she's sweet, it's all happening. You've got your feed going into YouTube, but you haven't clicked live yet, and then all these people pour in. You go and send 10,000 people down there, or worst, you're at a football stadium, and I saw a couple of big fails on the footy show where they tried to do live crosses through 4G links, and you get 60,000 people like Optus, and all of a sudden it all turns to crap. Well, it's because rather than having nobody there, or 100 people or 10,000 people hooked up to a tower, you've got 100,000 people hooked up to a tower, and you've got a tiny sniff. So Vodafone, they've got the least amount of towers around town. The smaller amount of towers they have, the smaller amount of network capacity they have. Vodafone also owns the least amount of bandwidth in the air. So even if they had heaps and heaps and heaps of towers, the amount of available bandwidth that they physically own in frequency spectrum to have people, it's the smallest out of any of the networks. So you've got a tiny sniff. If you're trying to most people are using downstream. They're downloading. They're not uploading. So there might be enough upload in the area, but not enough download. So you push some data to Facebook, and then Facebook tries to send you a message to say, yeah, got that bit, send the next bit. Well, it takes so long. The latency goes so high. It takes so long to get that packet to you saying, yes, send the next bit. Everything turns to crap. It all breaks up and you lose your connection, and it just doesn't work. Even if you try and take your 4,000 and say, okay, I need to turn the quality down because there's just not enough bandwidth, you turn it down to 500, 800, 800 be the minimum. You still can't do it because you can't get those return messages in enough time. You need to change protocol. So a company like mine that, we've been around for 5 years now doing live stream, and spent an extraordinary amount of time developing. I don't spend, because I'm sort of from an engineering background, I'm from an engineering family, we don't spend money buying a product that fits a purpose. We just don't do that. So I can buy a thing for $25,000 that has 6 SIM cards in it, and it sends a little sniff out on each of those SIMs, and it doesn't use RTMP. It uses a different protocol where it just pushes and it doesn't expect a response. Fine, I'm not spending 25 grand. I want to do it for what's a reasonable price?
$1,000.
Let's say $200.
Oh, wow, that's even cheaper.
All right, because I'm a cheapskate. So I want to do it for $200. I need to find myself an encoder which will do what I want. Took me a long time. So what I didn't pay for in money, I paid for in time. And I aligned myself with a factory. We partnered, we wrote software, we made this thing work. So now I don't need 6 SIM cards. I use one. I can broadcast on Vodafone. It's no problem for me. I can use any network you want, any bit rate. I use a compression codec, which is better than what Facebook uses. So all the video delivered, if you're watching this today, you'll be delivered this video on a compression codec called H.264, which is pretty old now. There's a more efficient one called H.265. It uses about half the bandwidth. So Facebook needs 4 megabits to send a good video. I can send that same video in 2 megabits. So I halve the bandwidth I require. I use a different protocol that doesn't require a bidirectional connection. It doesn't even need a handshake. I just send the video.
Yeah.
And all these things work.
Thank you for giving my charger for my computer. Sorry.
That's
I'm so sorry.
So you can do it, and you can do it on pretty much any network. I can even send really small video on what do you call it, satellite links, because we just know how to do it. Yeah. Compress the video as small as you can, use a better compression codec, and use a unidirectional protocol. Facebook doesn't accept that unidirectional protocol, so I don't send from my truck to Facebook. I send it to my data center, and I transcode it into the protocols that Facebook do accept, and then send it to Facebook. So it's just time. Like, if you don't have time, you got to spend money. Those $25,000 boxes do this, the same thing. It's just 25 grand. So there are ways to do it. But if you're going to go out on the street and do a live stream in the middle of nowhere, don't think you can. And I don't want to be rude to anybody. Like, I don't discourage anybody from getting in the business. Please don't think you can roll down there with OBS and a camera connected with a USB dongle or something and think you're going to stream sport or think you're going to stream something, because it's going to fall over. I don't discourage you, but it just takes time. It's not a, if you're aspiring or whatever, practice makes perfect. Sit around and do yourself a heck of a lot of streams. I started a Facebook page, which was not publicly published, just to mess about. Yeah. So do a lot of messing about, and you'll get there one day. It's just a long process.
It's one of those things that we've learned, because if you go back to the very first Facebook Live video for the station, it was crap. Like, I can own that. But then when you fast forward to today, it's a lot more professional. It's a lot more smoother. Yeah. And there's still little tweaks that you make, of course. I would never attempt to do a sport broadcast, because one, hats off to you for doing the Speedway. Like I'm just
Speedway's
waiting.
easy.
I'm just waiting
Speedway's
for
easy.
the
We love it.
wireless camera in the supercars or something.
We do it. We do it. We do it right now, and we've done it a whole bunch of different ways. The way that we're currently doing it right now, as much as I hate it, is actually an Android phone. It's a Galaxy.
So
it's
I
a
did
Galaxy.
just for a few. What phone do
Yes.
you have, Russell?
So
I have an iPhone.
Oh, okay. So I've just lost that. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can't do it with an iPhone. The software only works properly on an Android. So I've got a Galaxy S9 just to use a particular app that sends a particular type of compression, and that's how we currently do our in-cars. We've done it a lot of other ways. We've tried everything. We wished that GoPro, like there's a huge market. If GoPro or one of the action camera manufacturers would actually come to the party and put the right streaming protocol in there, because they do stream, but they stream with RTMP and you can't control it. You can't change the quality. You can't change the bit rate. You can't do anything. So the reason why you don't see onboard cameras in streams all the time is because it's really, really hard.
And unless you have the hamburger system, which Channel 7 has, which cost a lot of money, you're not going to.
Well, they don't own that. That's done by a company called BSI, and they have a whole 40-foot like transporter that just does onboard cameras.
Yeah.
It's like squillions and squillions and squillions of dollars. So if you want to do it and not spend squillions of dollars, you've got to be pretty inventive, which we've tried to over the years at varying degrees of proficiency. But at the moment, our current preferred method, it's the smallest. It's got an internal battery. It's waterproof. It's HD. It's got audio. And all of these problems that I'm listing, they're all various things that we've had problems with different technologies. That phone currently does it the best.
Yeah.
And you have to use a special app, send a special protocol with a special receiver, and it's a nightmare. But it does work. We've done cool onboards with it.
So my last question before I hand it back to Lynn is I guess losing an Android phone in a crash doesn't really matter.
I bought it secondhand because it's only second best anyway.
I probably have one here that you could have used, man. So anyway, on that note,
we have not destroyed one yet. I'll say that.
Well
We've
done.
not destroyed an onboard camera yet. We've broken a lens, but that's it.
I feel like it's almost one of those Top Gun videos now. You're going to drop a caravan or something on it just as a
that would be awesome.
It's been there, done that.
Demolition Derby, inside Demolition Derby.
We haven't done that. There was this cool, just to diverge for 1 second more, there was this cool show called Ray's Hell. And it was this crazy guy, Ray Bowman, and we strapped cameras in his cars and mucked around and all the rest of it. And just to give you an idea of the level of this, which is way more than Demo Derby. If you've been to the Perth Motorplex before, it's got the biggest, grandest catch fence of any speedway in Australia. Most speedways are now being modelled off it. It is ginormous. This guy comes, he wants to enter the show with a bang. He drives through the pits in his old crummy VL, or I'm pretty sure it was VL Commodore, and he's got a truck out the back with a ramp on it, and he jumps the fence on the way in. Not just jumps, it wasn't good enough for him. He put a rail on one side right at the end, so he corkscrewed. Corkscrewed the whole way in, and then he calculated the speed. This is why you do. This is why you make checklists and write scripts, like Russell was saying. Because he calculated the speed, and right at the last moment, as he's driving through the pits, he decided, 80 doesn't feel fast enough. I might not make it. He just guns it. Next thing, he flies right over the top, because you don't land on the ground, you kill yourself.
Yeah.
You put a lot of cars there, and you land on top of cars. It's soft. And he flew right over the top of the lot and landed right on the heavy ground. And it was fine. He did the whole show still. But we put cameras in his cars and did all that. We didn't even kill those. So, yeah.
I was going to say
the sky's the limit.
Quite interesting.
We'll have to find
That
that footage and put it on. Well, I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere, but
Man, I will. No, well, this is sort of the days before YouTube. That was it was a lot. I reckon it was about 2007, 2008. But there's a lot of cool stuff. I'll have to ask my mate Peter to see if he can fish out some old vision, because that was cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look,
Good to
guys,
chat with you, Russell.
No, sorry. You started a video and it's an area that I'm not a big fan of, but I like my audio stuff. However, I've noticed that it does play a big role in business. It's made us larger numbers than 6PR, so that's, to me, it's just, and you have to do video now. You can't not do it, and that's it.
Yeah, great.
So, guys, thanks so much for your time. Look, Russell always comes in at the end of all of my podcasts. It's just what we do. But Matt, thank you so much for coming on my show. Really, really appreciate it. And look, for those that are doing a live event or a big event, or just have some questions about video, I definitely recommend I'm going to talk to Matthew, and I'll have his contact details on the Facebook and on the LinkedIn link post that I'll have with the show. But thanks so much for your time, Matthew. Russell, as always, thank you for producing my show.
No, that's fine.
Really appreciate it. Guys, have an awesome weekend, and I look forward to talking to you soon, both soon, sorry.